Hello and welcome to your November horoscopes. First and foremost, I would love to thank my Patreon members, the North Node tier, for financially supporting this work every month. And then it becomes public on YouTube at the midpoint of the month when we change seasons. So thank you so much for supporting this work. And yeah, let's get right into it. In the month of November, we go from Scorpio season, which is a fixed water sign, to Sagittarius, which is a mutable fire sign. Fixed signs are the modality of when they hold the energy for the season. So Taurus is in the middle of spring, Leo is in the middle of summer, Scorpio is in the middle of fall, and Aquarius is in the middle of winter. These signs are meant to focus and sustain the energy of the season of their specific element. So for Taurus, it's earth. For Leo, it's fire. For Scorpio, it's water. And for Aquarius, it's air. Now, they also have this signification of being stubborn, of not moving, of not changing, which is true. They are fixed. However, their point is to sustain energy. That is different than the mutable signs. So the mutable signs are Pisces, which is the end of winter going into spring, Gemini, which is the end of spring going into summer. Then we have Virgo, which is the end of summer going into fall. And then we have Sagittarius, which is the end of fall going into winter. And mutable is exactly how it sounds. It's changeable, it's movable, it's malleable, it's flexible. And each mutable sign also is designated to an element. So for Pisces, it's water. For Gemini, it's air. For Sagittarius, it's fire. And I'm missing one. I'm missing one. Pisces, Gemini, Virgo. Virgo is the earth. So the vibe of November is fixed water. And what you're going to find in the month of November are all of these grand water trines between Mars in its domicile of Scorpio, Saturn retrograde in Pisces, and then Neptune retrograded back into Pisces in the month of October. And then Jupiter in the sign of Cancer, which is a cardinal fire sign. And all of this water energy and how they are all speaking to each other in our harmonious trine is what makes this month possibly emotional. It's about feeling to heal it. It's about catharsis and releasing of emotions that might have been pent up. It's about grieving and mourning. It's also about dreaming and imagination, incubation, the pregnant moment before something becomes birthed into the collective, into the physical reality. This is a time to work with the water element. If you don't have much water in your chart, this is by transit an invitation to understand what water is. Water is ever flowing, it cannot be contained. That's why water and earth go hand in hand together because earth provides the container for the water to flow. Water is movable. So this is a lot about moving your body and doing somatic work, doing some working with the water element, crying, expressing your emotions in however way they want to be expressed through either speaking it or into an art form or into therapy or counseling or healing sessions. So I think November is this incredible opportunity for us to slow down and to really ask ourselves honestly how we feel about things, how we feel about our life currently. We are at the 11th month of 2025. We're preparing now. Our energy is preparing and we're getting into this death cycle here, especially in the Northern Hemisphere, when we're in the thick of fall and things are starting to compost. So we get our energies ready for the Aries ingress that happens in March, which is the spring, which is the seeds are coming out of the soil. We have two lunations this month, the full moon in Taurus and then the new moon in Scorpio, which is interesting because now the new moons happen at the end of the month versus at the beginning of the month. So it does sort of asks us at the beginning of the month to release something and then at the end of the month call something in or use that energy as a seeding moment. We have a lot of movement in the sky. We have Mars will ingress into the sign of Sagittarius. So Mars goes from its domicile of Scorpio, which is more quiet, more stealth, more determined, into the wild, risk-taking sign of Sagittarius. Then Venus will ingress into Scorpio in its detriment. So it'll go from its domicile of Libra, then into the Mars ruled sign of Scorpio. Uranus retrograde will ingress into the sign of Taurus. And this is going to complete that 8-year transit of Uranus in the sign of Taurus since 2018. And Mercury will retrograde back into the sign of Scorpio. And we will also have a Mercury retrograde this month between the signs of Sagittarius and Scorpio. The Sun will ingress into the sign of Sagittarius. And then Venus at the end of the month will ingress into the sign of Sagittarius. So again, we go from a lot of like water energy to at the end of the month, we'll get into the mutable fire sign of Sagittarius. There's a lot of planets that are pivoting and changing directions. So Mercury will retrograde on November 9th. Jupiter will retrograde in Cancer on November 11th. Saturn will station direct on November 27th. And Mercury will station direct on November 29th. So those are the major ingresses and retrogrades. And we're going to do something differently for each sign. I'm going to pull tarot cards for each sign to give you some messages. And yeah, this is maybe not going to be like a day-to-day forecast for your rising sign, but a more overarching theme of what to prepare for as we head into 2026. So let's get into your sign. Hello, Taurus, and welcome to your November horoscopes. How are y'all doing? I'm just gonna light this candle here. Okay, so November, Scorpio season, that is your seventh house. So you're going to be dealing with a lot of topics around seventh house issues, which is your one-on-one relationships, partnerships, open enemies, if you will. But let's start from the beginning. November 4th, Mars will ingress into Sagittarius. So Mars was transiting through your seventh house in its domicile, and now it's going into your eighth house. So, like I said, the topics around your partnerships, your relationships, and also Mars rules your 12th house of like what's hidden, the unknown, the unseen. So the eighth house in astrology is about shared income and resources. This is also money that you might have put in towards like your student loan debt or investments, perhaps, or taxes. These are like things that you put in towards investing on, but then sometimes might accrue debt, for example. So having Mars here actually can help you clear some of that away because Mars has this like severing quality. Mars ruling your seventh house, though, I'm wondering if some of you are splitting up your resources with people or you're maybe splitting up. And you're saying like we're gonna financially like go in different directions. I do think it's interesting that the very next day, as Mars is ingressing into your eighth house, that you do have a full moon in your sign in your first house. So something is coming to fruition. Something is ending, perhaps. I really do love full moons, moons in Taurus in general because they're exalted. And this happens at 8:19 a.m. Eastern time, so please adjust for your time zone. I'm actually going to share my screen like I've been doing with all the signs, so please hold. Okay, so um here is the full moon at 13 degrees and it's opposite your sister sign, Scorpio. The first and seventh house axes is always about self and the other. And the axes of Taurus and Scorpio is usually around like our worth, our value, Taurus is the physical embodiment, Scorpio is the detachment. So something might be coming to fruition when it comes to like your own sense of self-worth, like, oh my gosh, I've been giving away my power, and this is this like aha moment. The ruler of this full moon is Venus in its own sign in Libra in your sixth house. The sixth house is your work environment, your pets, your coworkers. So they're like people that are in your life, but they're like on the outer tier of like your inner circle. And the sixth house also deals with health routines and rituals. So make sure that around the time of this full moon, you're taking care of your health, you're taking care of your body. Maybe some of you might be realizing that it's time to take your health seriously, exercising. Also, what you're like, health doesn't just mean like what you feed yourself and your body, right? It's also like the kind of social media you consume and how much you consume of it. Are you also taking care of yourself spiritually and emotionally? Are you allowing yourself to rest and really enjoy the fruits of your labor? What I like about this full moon is that it is, well, first of all, the ruler of this full moon is that excuse me, that Venus in Libra. And it is making a separating square to Jupiter in Cancer that's currently transiting through your third house. So the third house is are those people that are in our close proximity. I don't know why I can't speak right now. It's our siblings, cousins, aunties, our neighbors. So there is some expansion going on in your third house. It's also the house of communication and writing. So maybe you're making yourself more of like a presence in your community since Jupiter also rules your 11th house of friendships and community. Maybe you're being more involved in like organizing. I also see people with like third house, sixth house, 11th house activations being like community organizers, for example. So maybe around this time, this is when you decide like, okay, this is what something that I want to do. Also, Taurus moons are like really for me also about like food insecurity, food security. And some of you might be volunteering at like a food pantry, for example, or that's like a huge part of your purpose or your mission. And I would say that is a good use of this full moon, to be honest with you, is to be of service to a community that's in need, since Venus is in the sixth house, which doesn't normally have that signification. But I always say that, like, the sixth house, we tend to here in the sixth house, we tend to be of service to other people in need. And that can also be what helps us to kind of move through these like I want to use the term like bad karma gently because karma for me just means patterning. So if you've been in this cycle of like going through your own shit and wanting to change a pattern, a great way to do that and get out of your own head is to help somebody else. Of course, if that's in your wheelhouse. So that's the full moon in Taurus. So that is a full moon happening in your own sign. Moving right along, the very next day on November 6th, Venus enters your seventh house in Scorpio. So your chart ruler, Venus, is now going into the seventh. So you might just be more involved with relationships. Like, even if you're not partnered, if you don't have like a husband or a wife, or you don't have a partner, you could just be more involved in your relationships with your family or with your friends or, people in your life. You just might be more inclined to be there for them. Venus will go from its domicile in Libra to its detriment in Scorpio. So your chart ruler goes from this like lovely like place of like, and I have to say like Venus in Libra, just because it's in its domicile doesn't mean it's an expression that everybody likes, because I often find that people who have Venus in Libra, they tend to not want to disturb the peace. They tend to be people pleasers. They tend to pretend that everything is okay, but not when it's not really. And that's why I like when planets are in their detriment, because now Venus will show its true colors in the sign of Scorpio. This is a Mars ruled Venus that's kind of like, well, I don't care if I'm disturbing the peace. Like, I don't care if you feel uncomfortable around me. So you could have this like vibe shift all of a sudden of like feeling more jealous or obsessive or just resentful and vengeful. But I'm not here to judge. I like those expressions of Venus. So you just might be showing up in a different way too, or because Mars has this severing quality. You might just have like this moment in the month of November when Venus goes into Scorpio, being like, actually, I'm gonna focus on myself in your relationships. I'm gonna prioritize myself. On November 7th, Uranus will retrograde back into Taurus, back into your first house. So Uranus has been trying to change you in some way, either your physical body, since 2018. Now, Taurus, love you to death, but you are a fixed earth sign, so you are the least likely to change or the slowest to change. And when you change, it's because you want to change and it's on your timeline. And that's some of the, I guess, like stereotypical things that people don't like about Taurus people. So Uranus coming here, it's like, okay, I need to seriously like get out of this rut. I need to get out of this stagnancy. Some of you might have felt inclined to exercise or take your physical health seriously. Something about your body changed since 2018. And now Uranus is coming back here to finish up that transit. And Uranus is going to stay here until around April of 2026. So that's like 6 more months of Uranus in your first house. So you want to look back at like since 2018, like what's changed. And yeah, Uranus is kind of like finishing up its thing here. On November 9th, Mercury will retrograde in Sagittarius at 6 degrees. And so Mercury is the ruler of your fifth house in Virgo and also Gemini, which is your second house. So that's interesting that it's retrograding in your eighth. So the ruler of your second is in your eighth. So some of you might feel like a lot of your money is being poured into like a shared thing or a shared expense. Like for example, the second house is like your money and how you're resourced, but the eighth house, which is the opposite house, is shared income. So when the ruler of the second is in the eighth, some of you might be like, gosh, like I'm just pouring a lot of money into these bills. I'm pouring a lot of money into this like shared expense, and it's just like getting out of hand. And so now this retrograde is like, do I want to continue doing this? Some of you might have kids, and that's what this expense would be, or you're trying to reconcile how much money you spend on your kids or something like that. And of course, money is going to be at the forefront of a lot of people's mind because of everything that's going on with this government shutdown. So, and I send you so much like care at this time because it's not easy for a lot of people. But I think with this Mercury retrograde through going through your eighth house, you are really looking at your resources and doing an audit of like your expenses and what you're getting, what's coming in versus what's coming out. And then on November 11th, Jupiter will retrograde in Cancer at 25 degrees. And Jupiter, like I mentioned, is transiting through your third house. So Jupiter is trying to expand maybe your community presence. It's making you maybe even heal your relationships with siblings or cousins or extended family. But Jupiter's exalted in Cancer, which I really like. And so now it's going retrograde. And again, you're kind of contemplating like, is this is this working? Do I want to keep doing this? Some of you Taurus risings might have like decided to venture into public speaking or being more involved in a community in some way, or you decided like I'm going to be more vocal on social media, and now you're kind of like reflecting and recalibrating from when Jupiter entered your third house, which was May of 2025. And on November 18th, Mercury will retrograde back into Scorpio, which is your seventh house. And so, yeah, I think going back with the topics of your Mercury ruled houses, which are Virgo, your fifth house, Gemini, your second house. Now, those topics that I mentioned about your eighth house are now going into your seventh. So you might be like reconciling with a partner. Hey, like, I think we need to look at our budget. We need to look at how we're spending. How much am I putting in? How much are you putting in? How much are we going to be spending on our kids? You might get assistance from your kids since Mercury rules your fifth house, or something's going on with your family, money, investments, spending and kind of like, because Mercury rules the three C's, right? Communication, contracts, and commerce. So having Mercury going through your seventh house, you might be also like reviewing a contract, for example. And yeah, so that's your Mercury between your eighth and seventh houses of Sagittarius and Scorpio. November 20th, there is a new moon in Scorpio at 28 degrees, and this happens at 1:47 a.m. Eastern time. So this is your seventh house axis. So let's share the chart. Ooh, hold on. New moon in Scorpio. Okay. So a new moon happens when the moon and the sun are in alignment in the same sign. So they're at 28 degrees. So this is almost at the end of Scorpio season. And Mercury retrograde is conjunct this new moon. Okay, great. They are opposing Uranus at the anaretic degree in Taurus in your first house. So, like I said, this is the axes of you and another person. Now, a new moon is a new beginning. It's like a reset of the moon. It's the new lunar cycle. This is when we set our intentions and we kind of like forecast like what we want to plant seeds on. Because this is like conjunct Mercury, this is also about like the agreements we make, contracts, how we communicate. But because it's opposing Uranus, there's some element of surprise. And I think the surprise might be coming from you, to be honest, because you're the one with Uranus in your first house. So I don't know what you have up your sleeve, Taurus risings, but if you're like, boom, I don't want to be a part of this partnership anymore, or I don't know what this is. I mean, you would know best. You would know your life best, but there seems to be some element of shock and surprise or unexpectedness of this full moon because it's also applying to that opposition to Uranus. The ruler of this new moon is that Mars in Sagittarius. Mars in Sagittarius is very like courageous and it takes risks, right? Which I don't necessarily think of a Taurus as a risk taker, but maybe you just had enough and you're just fed up and you're like, oh, I'm just gonna like Do it. I'm just gonna like, and I did say that this is Uranus is like last, it's closing up its chapter. So maybe you've just decided like I'm gonna pull the band-aid on it. What I do love about this new moon is that the new moon is making this gorgeous grand water trine in your social houses. So the new moon is separating from a trine to Jupiter in Cancer, a separating trine from Saturn in Pisces in your 11th, and applying to a trine to Neptune in Pisces. And they're forming this grand water trine in all of your social houses, the third, seventh, and 11th. So there is some support that you might be receiving at this time. Like, let's say Scorpio season is rocking you and you feel alone and you feel like life is changing at a very rapid pace for a Taurus. You could find support in your community, your friends, people that you call comrades, or people that are close to you that you trust. That is going to help you get through this time because of the nature of this grand water trine. And for everybody who is going through a tough time, I think the antidote to fascism and everything that's going on is community. And a lot of people always ask me, um, it's hard for me to be in community and all this stuff because community begins with you. Like you have to do the internal work. You have to build trust and start investing in relationships. And this is not easy. Um, because we were not taught these skills, right? So I think with this grand water trine, this is also an opportunity for you to do some healing work, finding the right people to facilitate these things. Um, and that is the new moon in Scorpio. Also, the fact that it's happening in your seventh house sector, some of you might be setting intentions to call in a partner, to call in the right people in your life to help you on your mission. On on November 21st, the sun will go into Sagittarius, which is your eighth house. So this is an eighth house season. Eighth house seasons are not always the easiest because the eighth house is the house of death, metaphorically. So don't like freak out. But the sun rules your fourth house of Leo. So some of you might be dealing with topics around your mortality or like your elderly parents getting older and topics around like inheritance and the will and who's going to take care of who, you know? Some of those topics might come up during this transit. When you're in Sagittarius season, when the sun is in your eighth house. But this isn't also, see, I don't know why I can't speak in your group specifically. This is also a good time to like do healing work, because the eighth house is also the house of the occult. This is the time where if you need assistance, like a therapist or do healing, and I think that's why there's like that grand water trine in your social houses is that can help you go through some of these times. On November 27th, Saturn stations direct at 25 degrees in Pisces. So Saturn is going direct in your 11th house, which is the sector of your friends, groups, and alliances, like mostly like community. And if you have a social media presence, these are your followers. So Saturn is going direct here, and Saturn rules your ninth house of Capricorn and your 10th house of Aquarius. So there's something about you maybe during this Saturn transit for the last like 3 years, you decided to teach a group of people, or you decided to be like more of an elder figure. And you don't have to be like old to be an elder figure, somebody who imparts wisdom onto others in a group setting. And like you're the responsible friend. That's what it's giving. Saturn in the 11th house. And now Saturn is going direct. And this is the last time Saturn will be going direct in your 11th house. On November 29th, Mercury will station direct at 20 degrees of Scorpio. So now Mercury is going forward in your seventh house. So again, your social houses, something's changing, something's shifting. November 30th, Venus will ingress into Sagittarius. So now Venus, which is your chart ruler, will be going into the eighth house, and you'll be further dealing with eighth house topics. Um, Venus is Sagittarius as a transit is fun, flirty, and non-committal. So I don't know if that's how y'all will be feeling by the end of the month, but I like that for you. So as promised, I'm going to pull cards for each sign for the month of November. So we're going to ask, what is one obstacle for Taurus? Oh, that was my stomach. It was growling. Maybe that was a sign for you. Quench your hunger. Okay. What is one obstacle for Taurus to look out for? Thank you. The Ace of Wands. Okay, this is an obstacle, which means that there are opportunities for you to have this new beginning, this new spark that you might be missing out on, that you might not be paying attention to. So, I would say that this month might be difficult. It's going to be difficult for a lot of people just because, like, we are in this collective death period right now. But there are opportunities for you. I do think there's opportunities in your community that, especially with Jupiter and Cancer in your third house, that you might be sleeping on. So, what is the opportunity? What is the opportunity? Ooh, I absolutely love this. It's the star. The star is about healing. The star is about innovation. It's about humanitarianism. What I love about the star is it's also an Aquarius card. So Aquarius is the water bearer, and so the whole point is back in, like, it's not even ancient times because, like, I've seen water bearers in, like, Palestine recently, where basically the jug, right? These jugs were invented, were crafted so that a person can go to a watering hole and bring water back to the community. And like I was saying, there is magic, wisdom, and opportunities within your community that I think you might be sleeping on, because obviously, like, there's other parts of your chart that might be challenging this month, but look out for the people that can help you. Look for those inspirations, look for those people that can impart some wisdom on your journey, because this is like really that's really lovely. What is the blessing for Taurus? Okay, the Hermit. So this is a moment, this is a Virgo card. This is about, like, inner reflection, taking quiet time to do, like, the introspection, right? Which, when you're in Scorpio season, I feel like that's the time to do it. It's to, like, get really real, be honest about your feelings, and that's why Scorpio is the nocturnal expression of Mars, which is the change is elicited from the inside. But oftentimes we don't feel those cues because we distract ourselves, we're avoidant people. But you have two major arcana here. So November seems to be a really pivotal moment, and I don't think it's an accident that Uranus is re-entering your sign for that last blip. So that seems pretty epic and important. But thank you so much, Taurus, and I'm sending you so much love. I will see you next month. Bye.